And I've been in enough tough situations in the mountains, and I've been in enough rescues helping to save other folks, where I've noticed that absolutely fear is contagious, but so is confidence. And you want to be the person to try and project some confidence even in that moment of fear, in that moment of crisis. It doesn't mean you have all the answers yet, but by projecting some confidence, basically what you're going to do is spark resilience. Spark resilience in yourself and spark resilience in the people near you.
That was a huge avalanche and a huge powder blast.
Just harrowing. And joining me now on the phone from Everest is mountain climber Jim Davidson, who's stranded on Mount Everest at this point.
What had happened is just as I reached for the zipper, the earthquake hit us on the glacier. And our tent and the entire glacier shot up into the air about 8 inches. We hovered there for a second, and then the whole thing dropped back down. And we just bobbed up and down, like being in a life raft on the ocean.
Here comes the powder blast!
I spoke with Jim Davidson. He's a climber from Fort Collins, Colorado. He survived the earthquake and the avalanche.
But I could see those avalanches where they'd come down. One of them came down 4,000 feet off the west ridge of Everest and had gotten to within 500 yards of our tent. The other one came down 6,000 vertical feet from the 25,000 foot of Nuptse and has stopped about 200 yards from our tent.
Jim Davidson, a climber from Colorado, survived the avalanche. He is with us on the telephone now from Everest Base Camp. Good morning.
Good morning, this is Jim.
Now, we walked along the Khumbu Glacier, and you may have heard of the Khumbu Icefall. And I've been an ice climber for 33 years, and I got to tell you, the Khumbu Icefall is the craziest place I've ever been climbing. My first trip into that, I looked around, and what it's comprised of is thousands and thousands of crevasses and thousands of ice blocks. And those ice blocks range from the size of your refrigerator up to bigger than this whole building. And all those ice blocks are leaning on each other.
And there goes Fred, up the ladder.
It was gorgeous. We're at 19,900 feet. You can see our tents there, and in the distance, some tents of other teams nearby, and these big crevasses going across the glacier. And way in the back is Camp 2. And it's April 25th, 2015. And the day we moved up into the icefall is the day the earthquake struck.
Holy schmoly. Sounded like it rumbled off Nuptse, but then I thought I heard another one over there, but it's hard to tell. The sound was bouncing around too.
And so you're in this situation. You're scared. You're not exactly sure just what happened. And so the question is, how should you behave in those circumstances? How can you be resilient during a crisis? Well, I think there's a couple things to do even when you're still scared out of your mind, like I obviously was. Number one is to have some situational awareness. What is happening around us? There's an avalanche here, there's an avalanche there, the ground's moving, must have been an earthquake. By figuring out what's going on, you can move on to the next step, which is how can I take some beneficial action? Putting on the avalanche beacon was a small but important step. And by taking that small step, I started showing myself, I intend to survive this, and I intend to be able to make it easier for others to find me. And now that I've got my beacon on, maybe I can find them. So by taking some small beneficial actions, you can start triggering some resilience response in yourself and others around you.
Why did you want to climb Everest?
I wanted to go there to learn the most I could about myself and my fellow climbers and the human capacity. You know, it's a physical challenge, but it's a mental and spiritual challenge as well. And in this case, we didn't get to test ourselves up high on the summit, but I learned a lot from the people around me.
Beautifully said.
After a difficult period, how can you still be resilient? I think a couple key things come up. First of all, you got to stay engaged. You've got to not just sit on the rock or crawl in your sleeping bag. I felt the urge just to crawl inside my sleeping bag, pull it over my head, and pretend this wasn't happening around me, but it was real. You've got to stay engaged with the situation. If you're the leader, you need to put some energy out there and show the people what to do. Somebody having a small kernel of an idea, let's dig through the debris at the field hospital, got dozens of us fired up, and we went over. The situation obviously had drastically changed. I knew within a minute there was no way, once the earthquake hit, that we were going to be climbing the mountain. But we were still trying to act like a team of climbers, supporting one another, helping out strangers, helping out the community we're in. And upholding those core values, whether we're climbing the mountain or moving rocks, was key. Your core values remain the same. You maintain your culture, you uphold your visions no matter what. That's what you do as professionals, that's what you do as a top quality team. And when you feel that transformation, that stress, you can't just transform by going back to the way things were, because the situation has changed. Your world has changed. And it's not just pretending it didn't happen and getting over it, because the stress is real, the trauma is real. We talk about the downsides of PTSD, but there is a potential upside to these traumatic situations. PTG, post-traumatic growth. And it literally means growth after trauma. See, humans are very resilient. When we go through a tough situation, we have that lull of energy and the world has changed. Now, post-traumatic growth doesn't make the trauma go away, and it doesn't bring back the people that are wounded. The situation has changed, the trauma is real. But by struggling with the mess and the meaning a little bit, you can start to understand, how has this changed my world? You try and create a new world, and you distill lessons and wisdoms from those difficult situations, and you start reapplying it. And that's how we learn as a species, we learn as individuals, we learn as a work group. We find out what didn't work, we change our pattern, and we reapply it. And really, you're forging a new reality. You're applying the resilience and the lessons you've learned to improve yourself, to improve your organization, your workplace, as well as your community.
Jim is the co-author of a national best-selling memoir called The Ledge, an inspirational story of friendship and survival. The Ledge was chosen one of the best books of the year by Amazon, and it won the National Outdoor Book Award.
I think when we go through these tough situations, we have a duty as leaders and as survivors to try and pull out the information and the messages we can and help other people along the way. You see, through trust and resilience, you can serve other people and help them succeed. There's going to be challenges. There's going to be big opportunities. Through teamwork and through service excellence, that's how you can raise your team up to an even higher level. And then even magnify what you've learned through servant leadership, and again, help even more people. Thank you for everything you do, and thanks for listening. Thank you.
Very good.
Thanks, Bob. Thank you.